And recording. Hi, hello, welcome, good morning, salutations. Happy New Year. Welcome to Brain and Behavior. I can say without hesitation, the most fascinating class you'll probably ever take. That's a pretty boastful claim right out of the gates, but I wouldn't say it if I wasn't pretty confident I'm going to be able to substantiate that and back it up. So we'll see what you think as we start wading our way into stuff here. First of all, I want to kind of apologize, being so pushy. Make sure you watch this video. Did you click the video? Have you watched my video yet? But part of the reason I'm feeling the need to do that is almost without exception. Every term starts and I make a video and throw it out there and just kind of say, hey, you're all grown-ups, you're gonna watch this, right? And then a little while later see it's like, you have 4 views, and then my inbox has like 87 emails asking all of the questions that I explicitly, explained in the video. So anyway, I know that's not gonna happen this time, so that's good to know. Anyway, I am going to come on to that here in a few, as far as kind of the nuts and bolts, meat and potato issues of the term. I know you're getting syllabused to death. That's just what happens at the beginning of each term. So I'm going to try to basically take out all the parts that are relevant, important, that we really need to know about, make sure that we're totally on the same page and clear about those things. So I'm going to do that here shortly. But just quickly to sort of give you a sort of intro to this course, and to try and at least, give some explanation why I'm so damn confident about why it's so good. So hello, I am Christopher Collins, and I will be the captain of our ship, I guess, for better or worse. I am a behavioral neuroscientist, and I do comparative animal behavior, and I did a whole graduate training in clinical neuropsychology as well. And so this is my heartthrob. Brain and behavior and courses like this, I mean, this is the stuff that is the nearest and dearest to me. So obviously I already have that bias coming in to address some of these things. But, outside of just my bias of thinking this is so fascinating, we're gonna dive this term into some things that you already probably anticipate. In a psychology program, everyone has to take quantitative or statistics, right? And that's kind of where the math bleeds into the psych arena. Happens to be another one of my courses. And this is kind of where the biology creeps in a bit more. And some of the things you all have varying degrees of familiarity, exposure to, history with, biological, physiological processes, things like that. And some of what we're going to do kind of fits the expectations of what you would have with like a anatomy and physiology associated course. Yeah, there's going to be some memorization. We're going to talk about different structures, and oh yes, the tectum and the tegmentum make up the midbrain, and the tectum has a superior and inferior colliculi, the superior for visual orientation and auditory, and the inferior. There will be aspects like that. We are going to get into the tiniest of tiniest, discussing DNA, the nucleotides, and how DNA creates genes, and how genes constitute enzymatic processes and cell behavior, and work our way up all the way to behavior. So we'll go down to the microscopic and talk about molecular processes, neurotransmitters, chemical reactions, and then we'll also blow this up into arenas of just massive, I guess I would just call them human questions. Questions about existence, about being, meaning, self, volition, consciousness. Questions that are addressed not just in courses like this. These are addressed by philosophers and theologians and biologists and sociologists and anthropologists. And these are questions that we come at as a species about meaning and really huge worldview philosophical questions. And I acknowledge my bias at the front end here, but I don't think it's out of turn to suggest that contemporary neuroscience is probably making the greatest strides into these big questions in relation to any other discipline. These are questions philosophers, theologians, people have been asking about consciousness, free will, sensation, perception, volition. All these things have been from time immemorial. But the only places where real progress seems to really be being made is in contemporary neuroscience. And so at the same time that we're going to dive down and talk about genes and neurotransmitters and receptor types and cell function and things like that, I want us to also keep in mind that no matter how microscopic we get, those things pertain directly right back up to the biggest questions of, and how does that manifest in subjective internal consciousness, sensory and perceptive experience, and internal language and mental processes, cognition, memory, emotion. I mean, these are huge, huge questions. And I'll tell you right here at the front end, I'm not going to present you things that say, and here's all the answers of every mechanistic process along the way, but we're definitely going to gain profound insight into a lot of those arenas. And while, yes, this course is about your GPA and this course is about, doing well and getting points and all that sort of stuff, it would be dishonest of me to not put out there too that, frankly, at the end of the day, I hope you walk away from this course a very different person. Because if the stuff that we're going to be covering in these weeks to come doesn't leave you, at least at some point, if not multiple times, like laying awake at night, really questioning some of the fundamental things that you assume about being and about life and about all manner of things, if it does not ruffle some of your sensibilities and biases and ideas that you already have, may I be so humble as to suggest you're doing it wrong. Because we're gonna get into some pretty fascinating stuff, and that's enough of a commercial here on the front end of all of that. I just hope we all do really great, have wonderful GPAs, and are changed people philosophically for the rest of our days on the planet. Simple goals. Okay, let's get to the actual nuts and bolts pieces of that though, because on day one, you're not looking for a motivational speech on philosophy. You're probably wondering what the hell is going to be expected of me in these coming days, weeks, everything else. And as I said, I desperately want to clarify these things now, make them as straightforward as possible to obviate any problems, confusion, etc. down the line. So let's start with the book. We have our textbook for the course, Cowlitt's Biological Psychology. I've been using Cowlitt now for many editions, many years at many different colleges and universities. It's a good book. I like it. I generally get really positive feedback on the whole from it. I think it does a very nice job of communication and illustration of a lot of these things. In addition to and supplemental to the textbook itself, you hopefully have seen and are starting to get a sense of this platform that we're using through Cengage as well, called MindTap. Now let me explain something very quickly up front. So MindTap is a separate platform than the book. The book is the book is the book. MindTap is the platform online where it has a number of things associated with it. But that's where we'll be doing some of the assignments, some of the quizzes, exercises, things like that. It has study tools and resources and videos and all manner of things that are meant, of course, to supplement what we're reading, what we're talking about, all of that to kind of reinforce, bolster, what we're doing. First thing about that. So the book, textbook, if you want the paper book, the real deal, the former tree in your hands that you can flip through and smell and do the whole thing, get it. That's great. But One of the things that is on MindTap, is on that platform, is a full digital ebook of the textbook as well. And so if you are a person who is comfortable with digital media, you don't mind reading off of a computer, a tablet, an iPhone, or whatever it is, the entire book is contained within MindTap. All of the illustrations, all of the captions, all of it is there. So if you're comfortable with a digital version, you do not need to get the actual physical book. If you want the book, I like a tangible physical book, then that's great, and you can kind of work with both. But the actual paper book itself, you could consider optional. The MindTap piece, less optional, because that's where we're going to be doing some of the serious work, and the book is there too. So for what it's worth, and just a quick, it's a personal preference thing, but for myself, I don't particularly love reading digital media. I like a paper book. But that being said, one of the greatest benefits, to my mind, of the digital book is that it also has an e-reader. So in addition to being able to just read it yourself, I, for instance, love reinforcing, studying, whatever it is, the information over and over. So I'll read through the chapters physically in a book, and then having that access to the ebook also allows me that when I'm doing the dishes or folding laundry or commuting in my vehicle or something like that, I can turn it on and have it read to me. And the voice isn't great, but it's a nice tool. It's a great way to reinforce the information, kind of study, and bolster the learning that's going on there. So for what it's worth. Here is the crux of what I want to say about MindTap itself, which is you're going to find, as I have already said, there are a number of exercises, assignments, resources, tools available in there. Our grading piece, the assignments, the things that actually count toward our grade, are the comprehension checks and what are called the chapter quizzes or tests. I forget what language they use. Those two things, comprehension checks, chapter quizzes, those are the only two things in MindTap from which your grade will be calculated. You are going to see that there are other options in there, and I could have tried to make it a little less confusing by just getting rid of all these other potential resources, exercises, and assignments and things like that. That way there'd be no confusion. There'd just be comprehension checks and quizzes, and it'd be all well and good. But we also pay a hell of a lot of money for these resources, and it doesn't make any sense to me to make those resources unavailable to you just to avoid a little bit of confusion. So here's the deal. I'm going to leave everything there for everyone to access. Now, if you're a person that doesn't particularly like studying, preparing for exams, whatever, by doing these additional exercises, don't. You don't need to. You're not going to miss any points. You're not going to miss anything outside of the potential learning and things that would come from engaging them. But you're going to see things like videos and video quizzes, lab quiz, mastery training. There's going to be these other things throughout the MindTap platform. They are completely optional. I suggest them for sure, because when you do get to the exams, lo and behold, these questions come directly from what we're reading, what we're talking about, what we're working on, which is exactly what all these exercises are there to bolster and reinforce. But the reason I'm emphasizing this so much right now is that invariably, at the end of the term, I go to pull the points out of MindTap, which is a separate grade book from the Canvas grade book. I'll talk about that in a second. I take those points, I stick them into Canvas, and without exception, every term, somebody ends up freaking out because they did not understand which assignments they were supposed to be doing. I did all the mastery trainings. Why does it say I have a 0? Well, because the mastery trainings don't count towards your grade. So please understand, and if this is not clear, let me know. I will do my best to clarify it further. I'll even try to send out a video here in a while when I have the time, showing a little bit how to actually submit some of those things in MindTap and that, so that you can ensure that they're really there and showing up. But not to beat a dead horse, comprehension checks. Those are just a handful of questions smattered throughout the book. We just read a section about fitness and inclusive fitness and kin selection and whatever, and here's a few questions real quick to see, hey, did you get the big takeaway ideas from that? It's just a few points, checks your comprehension, as it were, and that's all those are. And what you'll notice is that the accumulation of all the comprehension checks, we have 14 chapters we're going through. There's multiple comprehension checks per chapter. It varies by chapter, actually. But if you do every single one of those comprehension checks throughout the entirety of the term, your total will actually come out to a greater number of points than that which is available, which is 130 points. What that means is you can miss points, right? You can get 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 or 0 out of 3 on some of the comprehension checks and still get full credit for the term. You could even miss, I don't remember how many, so don't try to quote me on this, but you can do the math easy enough by looking at it. You can miss a couple of the comprehension checks and still have more than enough to get total points available. The other one being the chapter quizzes. These you cannot miss. So 14 chapters, 10 points each. There's 140 points available to you for those quizzes. So those you do need to do. And then that, of course, comes 140 points for the quizzes, 130 for the comprehension checks. That's what will come out of MindTap. All of the other exercises will be there, and they should say not graded or doesn't count towards grade or something to that effect. But just understand which parts are going to actually count towards your grade in that, and let me know if it doesn't make sense. Okay, on to the next bit. So that's a separate entity, separate platforming grade book from Canvas, where our course domain is. In that domain, things we will be doing, this is where we're going to find the discussion forums. The discussion forums, I have always been an in-class lecturer, face-to-face, engage in the conversation and have the back and forth, and that's always been my favorite, but now we live in our weird COVID world. So some of you are familiar with online learning, some of you know it much better than I do, even. But the discussion forums are essentially going to be the one place where we come together as a group in any meaningful way to engage the information and the content of the course. And what you're going to find with these discussion forums, just to be extraordinarily clear here at the front end, these are wildly open-ended. They really are asking you, okay, in this particular section, this particular module this week, here's what we covered, these chapters. And within those chapters is a gazillion amazing, mind-blowing, fascinating topics. Pick one. What stood out to you? What was most relatable? What was most salient or relevant? What reminded you of this? I mean, in a very real way, there's no wrong answer to these discussion forums. Genuinely, what did you find disturbing, interesting, fascinating, relatable? Whatever it is, you can relate it to your own life. You can relate it to something in the news. You can relate it to your other classes. You can relate it to, I don't care, movies, whatever the case may be, so long as you're engaging the topic, you're speaking to it in some depth. So that means, of course, right, that it isn't quite enough if we're talking about the motor system and you say, wow, I'd heard about mirror neurons and I didn't know that there were mirror neurons located in these motor regions, and that's interesting, and just leave it at that. That's not quite sufficient. Why is it fascinating? What does it make you think about? Why is it something that stuck out to you? How does it relate to whatever made it interesting to you. So you need to give enough substantive, right, insight, ideas, wherever you want to go with it, but enough that you're really engaging the idea, you're speaking to it, but in whatever way you choose to. In addition to that, without fail, people find themselves utterly confused when, after a few weeks, I go in and start giving feedback and points and things on the discussion forums, because they'll have put up a wonderful long explanation where they dive into a topic. They even provide citations to work and things that were done on that. And then they don't get full points and they're mystified as to why. Well, it's a discussion forum. It's not enough to just put up your post, say, everybody read what I had to say, but not to engage anybody. So the crux of this is that, on the one hand, this is easy as can be. There should be nothing difficult about giving an answer where there's no wrong answer. As long as you're engaging the topic and talking about it at least loosely related to things, you can't go wrong. But what that does mean is that where the effort has to come in is the engagement. You need to read not everybody's posts. That's way too many. That's what I have to do. But read some posts, at least a few posts. Pick out ones that stick out to you, or people that particularly say things that engage you or whatever, and respond to them. We're going to try to get our initial posts out sort of as timely as we can in the weeks where we're working on them. And then the goal is to come back, keep revisiting the discussion forum. This isn't a one and done thing. I put up my post, great, now I'm on to this and this and then on to the next week. You need to return, read other posts, respond to the people who made those posts, read the responses that are coming onto your post, respond to those individuals. That's how the discussion piece is supposed to work. And so I don't want there to be any mysteries about how this goes. Of course, I'm not going to dock you a single point, even if your entire post is taking something that I think is amazing, remarkable, and fascinating, and your whole post is basically saying, well, this is a bunch of bullshit. Well, that's fine, actually. I'm not going to ding you for that, provided you tell me why it's bullshit and where your thoughts are and how it relates and that kind of stuff. Great. And that you're engaging the other conversations as well. Conversations on your post, conversations of other people's. That's how you're going to get those posts. Even if you have the most succinct, amazing, award-winning post that is a standalone with no engagement of anything else, you're just not going to get all the points. So just trying to make that clear. I know it seems very obvious, but it isn't always. Okay, last bit, and then I will let up here because I've already been talking 20 minutes. Oh my Lord. Okay, exams. That part you really were excited to hear about. So in addition to what I just described, the exams are the other part of the course. Of course. So there are going to be no surprises. These are very straightforward. They shouldn't be very unfamiliar to you probably at this stage of your education. So these are contained within Canvas. They are multiple choice exams. There are 2 of them. There is our midterm that will take place at the mid of the term, covering the first half of information. We, because of the nature of this online environment, if you've been here at OSU, you surely will have used Proctorio by now. Our exams are proctored digitally through this service. If you've used Proctorio before, then you know exactly what's up with what we're doing here. If you've not used Proctorio before, go to the page in the Start Here module. There's a whole section with explanation, the links as to what you can do, the tests to make sure it works on your machine. You do have to use Chrome as the operating system. I wish they would change that, but it is what it is. So just be prepared because of course, all of these things sneak up on us, and that's another place where I get 874 emails the last day that the exam is available, and people saying, what the hell is Proctorio? So look into that and understand how it works. Make sure it's going to work for you. If you have questions, anything like that, there are links that are there, or you can reach out to me too. I'm not an IT person, so I can help insofar as I can, or I can point you in the right directions. It will cover the content that was covered prior. So the midterm will cover the first half. The final will not be comprehensive. It just covers everything from the midterm until finals week. 50 questions, multiple choice or sort of matching style.